Okay, so this is the lecture on Introduction to Immunology. So the learning objective from this lecture today is that you should be able to describe the fundamental concepts of immunology. So you should know about the overview of different types of different division of immunity response, which is the innate or adaptive, and the components involved in these responses for the fight of illness and disease. What are the components, the organ, cells, or tissue that's involved, okay? So that is the learning objective for today's lecture. And the lecture content will involve the basic concepts in immunology, the functions of immune system, the division of immune response, the components of immune systems, different components of immune system, like organs, cells, molecules that facilitate the immune system, the immunological disorders, and also the applications of immunology. So we will cover all these six subtopics today. Okay, what is immunology? What do you know about immunology? The post-diploma must be familiar with immunology if you already taken this course like during your diploma. Okay, so logy thinks the logy is actually the study. So the study of immuno. So what is immuno? The study of host body components, including molecules, cells, tissue or organs that involve in host defense mechanism against non-self materials or pathogens. So any pathogens or particle that are willing to enter our body. So we have our host, our body defense mechanism. So that is the immunology, the study of the immune system. Okay, so it's been the study of immunology has been done long before. Okay, and then what is the immune system? You want to study about the immunology, you have to know about the immune systems. So what is the immune system? It is a highly organized system made up of biological structures and processes which are able to detect and destroy the pathogens or foreign particles that is to protect us from any disease or illness. Okay, it is a system, compartmentalized system, which has structure, its own process, and it functions to protect us, okay, from any foreign particle that will cause disease or illness to us. Okay, so this is some example of some viruses attacking our red blood cells, or it could be red blood cells come into contact with the virus. Okay, so it's just an illustration, but it's real. Okay, so why study immune system is so important to us? So why are you taking this course? Why the immune system is so important to us? Because in our daily life, we are exposed to many threats from everything in nature. Okay, so we are always under attack by all sorts of threats all the time. So what are the threats? Could be virus, toxins, carcinogens, fungus, pollutions, germs, parasites, bacteria. So all of these are exposed to us. Okay, but our body has some mechanism that doing a very good job to protect our body. But how in the world do we survive from countless threats? How do we survive from these all sorts of threats? We have our immune system, right? So what is the function of immune systems or immune response? So immune system will recognize and respond to antigens in order to protect the individual effectively against the disease. So I'll be repeating the same things, and I hope you can grab the principle of immunology. So there is the task needs to be fulfilled in immune response. The first one is immunological recognition. When our body is exposed to the threats or foreign particles willing to enter our body, our defense mechanism are easily recognized or alert with the presence of those things. Okay, so that we will have our different types of immunity to work, the innate and also the adaptive. Okay, and second one, once the body is already recognized the foreign particle or pathogen, it will contain the infection. not only contain, it will eliminate it. Some pathogen, we can eliminate it in our first line defense. But some very potent pathogen, for example, viruses, we cannot eliminate it using the first defense mechanism. So we have several defense mechanism to counter the threats. Okay, that is one, we call it as the immune effector function. So we have other molecules like antibodies or complements or other functional molecules to work to eliminate or to in easy word, to kill all those dangerous pathogens. And then it's when immune regulation happens. So immune regulation happens to limit the host damage to the host. Okay, because sometimes in order to eliminate or encounter pathogens, our body react too much that it will harm ourselves. Okay. So immune regulations limit the damage to the host by immune response to antigen or pathogen. Okay, and failure of this regulation will contribute to other diseases like allergy or autoimmune disease that will attack our immune system. And number 4 is the immunological memory. So that so when the first exposure comes in, our body already recognize and learn how to attack those pathogens, so that when the second exposure happens, the memory will be recalled, and then our body will be encounter the pathogen easily. Okay, so you have to remember all those 4 important tasks of immune response here, and how it works. Actually, a flow here. How from the recognition, so the body recognize, and then the immune effector will function to regulate the immune response, and then it will cause a immunological memory to our immune system. Okay, so I give an example here. How does the body fight lung infection? So as I said, our body is exposed to many types of pathogens, and one of it is the viruses, the invader. So what happens when one invader attack our pulmonary system? Okay, so this is the culprit here. So when it willing to enter a body or already enter our body, so what will happen to our pulmonary system? So we have the first line defense, which is, we call it as an innate. Okay, so we have a physical barrier, which is the nose hairs, and also the physical barrier of cilia that lining the lung surfaces. And our first line defense also include the chemical barrier, the mucus. So all this barrier will prevent actually the entrance of the particle in our body, but somehow it is not very effective. For potent viruses like nowadays, the SARS-CoV-2 virus is very prone to just resist the second line defense. So it will enter our lung system. Okay, even we have the physical barrier. So don't cut your nose hairs. It will protect you from the viruses or any airborne infections. Okay, but somehow it is not effective. Okay, and then we have the second line defense. Once the bacteria or the viruses pass the entrance of the first line defense, it will enter the second line defense. Also, we know it as an innate immunity or immune response. So it involve the inflammatory response and also the actions of cells like macrophages to eat the bacteria. And if virus, it will involve the function of NK cells or natural killer cells that will destroy the infected cells, and also involve the effector cells to amplify the inflammatory response. Okay. And also the recognition by the antigen presenting cells, the APC. So why is this cell is important is that it will enter the third line of defense. Okay, once the APC recognize the pathogen, it will bring the antigens that recognized by the APC to the third lines of defense, which involve the actions of T cells and B cells. So all these things you will learn in the next topics in detail. So today is just about the introductory or overview of what is our immune systems and how it works. Okay, not to worry about this. You will learn in detail which cell involved, which effector cells, and what is the APC and T cells and B cells mechanism in the next topic. Okay. Okay, I also want to give an example of what is really happened in our immune system in this kind of COVID pandemic things. Okay, so this is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So once infection occurs, it will activate our innate immune response to the virus. And then also induction of adaptive immunity, how our body adapt to the changes when there is SARS-CoV-2 infection in our body. Okay, there are molecules that have been secreted and regulated, for example, the cytokines and also the antibodies. Okay, and then by time, the immune memory to SARS-CoV-2 is also activated, and it is facilitated by memory T cells and also memory B cells. Okay, so what happened to our body actually physically when these things happen without, we do not know what they are doing, the changes in our body. So we can see our body's adaptation to the COVID symptoms. Okay, so you know about the COVID symptoms things, but you need to learn about the immunology to know what really happened in our body during the SARS-CoV-2 infections. Okay, so this is just an example of the immune systems for SARS-CoV-2 viral infection. Okay, and this is if you understand this graph, you will learn that the loading of the antigen of the virus is increased during the first week, but it does not disappear because memory is already recorded here. So over the years, you still have the antigens of the virus, okay, but somehow it reduced. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, so many types of pathogens controlling the immune system, and there are some diseases that they cause. Okay, for example, the bacteria. So bacterial infection usually cause tuberculosis, the TB, or food poisoning by salmonella or tetanus or pneumonia that affect our pulmonary system, the lung infection or syphilis. And viral infections usually cause a common cold, flu, herpes, cold sores, measles, AIDS, chickenpox, smallpox. Those diseases usually caused by the virus. And the fungi cause ringworm infection, athlete foot, Stainia, candidiasis, mushroom poisoning. And also the protozoa usually cause the malaria, diarrhea, giardiasis, trypanosomiasis. Okay, this is some example. I want you to know different types of pathogen that cause different types of the disease. And please bear with the terms of pathogens. It is the agent or organism that cause diseases. Okay. Okay. Okay, pathogens enter our bodies through various ways. It could be airborne, it could be from food that we eat. Okay, a little permanent damage usually occur at the infected sites as a result of the infections, as well by the process of removal by the elements of the immune system. So during the viral attack also some harm to our body will occur, and also in the process of removing the pathogens from our body also sometimes hurting or harming ourselves. Okay, so we will learn about the mechanism later. So how pathogen can gain access into our body? So from the gastrointestinal tract, urogenital tract, from infections directly, nasopharynx and lung, and very few can penetrate the intact skin. Usually worms can penetrate our intact skins. Okay. Okay, now move to the immune response. So what happened to your body when immune response is activated or there is some changes? So if pathogens get inside in our body, okay, there are things that our body usually do to adapt or to slow down the invader. Okay, once our body already recognize it, so what our body's reaction? So sometimes you will have fever because the raising body temperature will help to denature the pathogen's protein. So your body already recognize the pathogen, it will increase our body temperature directly once they recognize the pathogen to help to denature the pathogen's protein. And also sometimes when you have airborne infection, there's a nasal congestion. Dilation of blood vessels will increase their permeability, leading to swelling, swelling of our nostril, okay? And also histamine released by the immune cells to help to counter the pathogens. And sometimes you have your runny nose, increased fluid leakage from your permeable capillaries, increased mucus and histamine released by the immune cells. And also sometimes you may feel pain because that caused by dilation of blood vessels, which causes swelling, influx of white blood cells into the infected area. So white blood cell is recruited to the infected area and stimulate a pain receptor. All these response to the immune or to the pathogens infection, we call it as an inflammatory response. Okay, so this is just briefly about inflammatory response. Inflammatory response have different types of mechanism that involve. We will learn it in topic 2 and 3 later. Okay, so I need you to know, how does the immune system work? Okay, there are two ways our immune system operates. The first one is non-specific, and the second one is in-specific defense. So the non-specific, usually we call it as an innate immunity, and specific is for adaptive immunity. Okay, let's see how different it is. Okay, so for innate immune response, it is no specific, and for adaptive, it is specific. Means it recognizes the invader through their unique antigen, and it will provide a unique mechanism for that antigen to kill it, to induce the death of the antigens. Okay. So innate immune response usually non-specific, but what they will do is actually you just try to remove or prevent the pathogen from entering our body. We call it as a first line defense, or we have the physical barrier that I mentioned just now. And innate immune response usually fast, and it has immediate protection, because once you have infections, you already can feel like your body have a runny nose or nasal congestion, and at that time you know you have some infection to your pulmonary system. Okay, and it has no memory, and its components involve the chemical barrier, physical barrier, and also it involves cells function, for example, the phagocytes and granulocytes, and also NK cells and dendritic cells to facilitate the immune response. And for adaptive, it usually takes a few weeks to fully effective, not an immediate response, because it contains the immunological memory for long-lasting protection. Because in order to stimulate the memory of B cells and T cells, it requires a few mechanisms that takes, like it said here, a few weeks to fully effective. And the component involve the B and T cells. Okay, we learn about B and T cells later. Okay, so far, are you guys following? Or am I going too fast?
No, doctor.
Okay, I hope it's clear for each and every one of you. You can interrupt You can ask questions. You can type in your question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. You just turn on your mic and ask. Okay. I require active participation from the students. I understand this is very early in the morning, but it is how it goes. All right. Okay. So this is an example of the not a mechanism, but characteristic of innate immunity and adaptive immunity. So innate immunity usually involve different kind of cells, and also adaptive immunity have its own cells reaction, and also the cytokines or the molecules that involve. So you have to differentiate which cells are required or function in innate immunity, and which cells and molecules that involve in adaptive immunity. Okay, so prior upon infection, as you can see here, within hours, you can see the response from the innate immunity. So it's very fast. Upon infection, like let's say from 8 to 12 hours, you will feel like you have fever or nasal congestion, maybe you have some flu or sneezing. Maybe it is a sign of your body adaptation to the infection. And usually days, okay, I think you can use your UITM email so that I won't have to allow you to enter the lecture. Automatically you will join the lecture. Okay, please use your UITM mail. Okay, so days after the infection, our body system, immune system is changing. There are some reaction or mechanism that involve to create immunological memory of the B cells and T cells to respond to the infections. More potent infection require more times for the reaction to occur. Okay. So here, innate immunity, like I said, always present. It is ready to attack, and many pathogenic microbes have evolved and resist the innate immunity. Some physical barrier, like you cutting your nose hair too much, so that it cannot protect your nostril area anymore from the airborne pathogen, for example. So it will enter directly your breathing system, your pulmonary system. So not because bacteria and virus is evolving. So they already know the trick of our physical and chemical barrier. So it will just resist that, and still will cause the infection to our body. And also for adaptive immunity, it's stimulated by the exposure to microbe or more potent viruses. Okay. Some dust, some pollution, dust, it may be require only first-line defense, our physical or chemical barrier. But for the infection of microbes or virus, it usually will undergo the adaptive immune response. Okay. So the discovery of innate immunity, how it is discovered. Okay. So the Russian biologist Makhnikov, so he's the first one to discover, okay, the innate immunity when he did a research on phagocytic starfish cells. So he observed macrophages on how macrophages eat and destroy the foreign pathogen. That was in 1883. Okay, and he won the Nobel Prize for that. Okay, this is how he view the macrophages, macrophages eating the bacterial pathogen here. So the red one is the bacterial pathogen, and the green one is actually the macrophages. So he observed this reaction using his old microscope at that time. So at that time, he proposed the innate immunity response. So this is how it happens. Okay. So how about the adaptive immunity? So it is discovered by a Persian alchemist, physician, philosopher, Arazi. So he's the first one to propose the acquired immunity or adaptive immunity. So when he noted the person-to-person transmission of smallpox at that time, we do not know the smallpox, the chickenpox, and stuff, but he discovered. So the smallpox is caused by the virus, right? And it became pandemic at that time. So he the first one discover the adaptive immunity from the smallpox transmission. Okay, sorry for the illustration. So this is so the smallpox vaccine introduced by Edward Jenner in 1796. So he's the first one to discover the vaccine for the smallpox. So actually, the smallpox is actually types of adaptive immune response. Okay. And now, what is the immune system is made up? If you know. So it is made up of our organ systems, different types of organs involved in our immune systems. So you may think which organs that involve in our immune system, okay? And also there are some sort of cells and molecules specific that involve in our immune system. So each and every one of the cells, you need to know the definition, the structure, the localization, and also the functions, okay, in order to fully understand how immune response is activated. Okay, what are the components of immune system? The first one, like I said, is the organ. So the organs, we call it a lymphatic system. It's divided by two, the primary lymphoid organ and also the secondary lymphoid organs. The primary usually involve the bone marrow and the thymus gland. And for the secondary, we have the lymph, the lymph fluid, and also the lymph vessels and lymph nodes, spleen, and muscle-associated lymphoid tissue, the MALT tissue. Okay. And the second one is you need to know the cells also made up our immune system. So it composed of lymphocytes, granulocytes, and phagocytic cells. Okay. And also the molecules, mediators that facilitate the reaction of adaptive immunity, which is sometimes it involves the antibodies for the viral infection or for the bacterial infection, and sometimes cytokines or interleukin also released by the cells to facilitate the adaptive immune response, and also the interferons or complements or enzyme that involve. Okay. Okay, so what are the lymphatic system? Okay, so in order to properly activate the immune system following the pathogen infection or antigen-antibody interactions, the immune cells need to be localized to a specific area where they properly express the receptors for antigen recognition and attain maturity. So in our organs, we have different types of cells that localize in specific organs in order to facilitate the reaction or mechanism of immune response. Okay. And lymphatic systems consist of specialized vessels. As you can see here, there are specialized vessels which drain fluids from tissue and lymph nodes into the blood circulation. So it's actually the blood circulatory systems and lymphatic system interact with each other. Okay. So the function, it absorbs some of tissue fluid or lymph that collect around the cells. So our cells secrete the tissue fluid around the cells that will be collected and enter the lymphatic systems. And then it will filter. So what a lymphatic system will do, it will filter dead cells, viruses, bacteria, and other unneeded particles from the tissue fluids and then return it to the circulatory system. So it basically just filter out and then return it to the circulatory system, the clean fluid. Okay. And the last one, it collects the particle or antigen from the entry points and deliver it to lymph node to activate the adaptive immune response to help fight off illness and infection. So during infections, when the pathogens enter our body system, so what lymphatic system, the organ and tissue do is that they will collect the particle or the antigens in the lymph node. The structure here. So in lymph node, there are some specific cells that, for example, the macrophage that will eat the pathogen and eliminate it from our body, for example, so that it will help our body to fight off the illness or infection. That's how it works. So when we say our body, so you need to have a very good antibody in order to fight off any illness from your body, then it's correct. Okay. Okay, some parts of the lymphatic system is a bone marrow, thymus, lymph node, spleen, lymph vessel, and also the tonsil. But usually we will discuss about the bone marrow, thymus, lymph node, spleen, and lymph vessels. Okay. Okay, what is the bone marrow? Part of the primary lymphoid system. Okay, during our fetal stage, or fetal development, there are some process called hematopoiesis by hematopoietic stem cells to produce or generate the blood cells. Okay, so bone marrow here is the major site for the generation of circulating red blood cells or white blood cells, the granulocyte, the neutrophil, eosinophils, and basophils, and also the platelets. Okay. And lymphocytes are white blood cells that destroy the pathogen infection causing microorganisms such as viruses and bacteria. So you have to bear with the terms of lymphocytes and how important these cells in destroying or preventing the pathogen infection. Okay, and lymphocytes consists of the B cells and T cells. So B cells usually mature in the bone marrow, and T cells mature in the thymus gland. Okay, now what is the thymus gland? What is the thymus? Okay, so this is our thymus here, located in here in this illustration. It is very clear. Okay, so this is the thymus or thymus gland. It is divided into outer cortex. Here, the outer cortex. As you can see, the cross section of the thymus here. Okay, and also, so the cortex usually filled with the T lymphocytes, and there are some medulla inside, the area inside, which are sparse with lymphocyte population, but the T lymphocyte usually located at the cortex. Okay, so the thymus gland is the organ of lymphatic system in which T cells complete the development and maturation. So T cell is produced in the bone marrow. It will be localized to the thymus to complete the development and maturation, and then it will stay or accumulated in the cortex area of the thymus. So once infection occur, it will being secreted to the organs or lymphatic system which involved in the infection. Okay. Okay. After immature cells move from the bone marrow to the thymus, they develop the ability to recognize and destroy body cells that have been infected. Okay. And mature B cells and T cells move into lymph and blood to help fight infection. Okay. So this is basically the structure and function of the thymus. So I want you to know when people say about the thymus structure and function, and then you should be able to explain it. Okay. Oops. Okay, and then lymph nodes. So you should understand the lymph vessel and lymph. Lymph, it is the fluid, the body fluid, and lymph vessels is the vessels that connected the lymph node together. Okay, so lymph vessel include clusters of small sponges. Actually, lymph node here, not lymph vessels. Lymph nodes include cluster of small spongy. Lymph vessel include cluster of small spongy structure that filters particles from lymph. That we call it as a lymph node. Let's see the picture here. Okay. So this is the normal lymph node, and this is the swollen lymph node filled with the pathogen or antigen, and also the cells that being moved to encounter the infection here. So it's actually a cluster of small spongy structure of lymph and lymph vessels. So that is we call the lymph node. Okay. So bacteria, viruses, fungi, and pieces of dead cells are trapped here and removed from the lymph as it flows through a lymph node. So that's why when you have an infection, we usually check our lymph node area, like from below our below our armpit or around our neck. When there is lump, and we know it's a sign of infections. Okay. And we know that your immune system is working right now to help to fight the infections. Okay. And lymph nodes also store white blood cells that attack and destroy the trapped particles here. The white blood cells from the location after their production in bone marrow will be moved to the lymph node. And we don't have only one lymph node. We have several, many or hundreds in our body. So we can feel it when we can feel when there is a lump or a small lumps in our body. That is a sign of our lymph nodes actually. And when it is too obvious, the swollen is too obvious, then you know it is a sign of infections. Okay. Here, when you have infection, your body increases its production of white blood cells that fight the infection. And many of these white blood cells gather in your lymph node and cause the node to swell. The swelling will disappear when the infection is gone. But when it becomes swollen by time, swollen and not reduced, it must be some kind of more potent infection. So that is the time you require antibiotics to help your white blood cell to work on fighting the infections. Okay. And spleen. So what is spleen? Spleen is an organ of the lymphatic system that recycle worn out red blood cells and store platelets. So our used red blood cell is not eliminated from our body. So it will be recycled in the spleen. Okay, so it is made of red pulp, which is full of blood cells, and white pulp in the lymphocytes. So here, red pulp fill in or localize or full with red blood cells, and white pulp is store the platelets. Okay, the lymphocytes. Okay, so if a person is injured and loses a lot of blood, the spleen can release stored blood and platelets in the circulatory system. Okay, and also not only when the person is injured, but actually when the person is infected by the virus or the microbes, when it require your lymphocyte, it will be released out to the infections area. Okay, so I hope so far everyone is following and not sleeping, please. Okay. Cells and molecular components of immune system. So just now we learned about the how our immune system is made up, and we learn about the organs. Now we want to learn about the cells and molecular components. So I combine it together because it is related from one another. Okay. So this is just a overview or brief on how different types of cells involved in your immune system. Of course, we will learn in detail each and every one of these in our next lecture. But I just want you to have an overview of it so that you won't be lost. Okay, for the next topic. So immune system, we can divide it with two, the innate and adaptive. And innate have cellular component and molecular component, as well as adaptive immune system, cellular components and molecular components. Okay, for cellular components in innate immune system, it involves big cells like macrophage, neutrophil, dendritic cells, which arrive from the monocytes, eosinophil, mast cells, basophils, and also natural killer cells that will fight off the virus. And macrophages usually fight off the bacteria. And also the molecular component that involve, which is the cytokines, chemokines, or complement proteins. So these two works together to initiate the innate immune system. And as for adaptive immune system, it looks simple, but actually the mechanism is much complicated compared to the innate immune system. So cellular component usually involve the B memory cells and T memory cells, and molecular component usually involve the antibodies. Okay, so bear with this. So mind you, if I ask you to draw this picture, then you are able to differentiate what is the division of the immune system and the components that involve. Okay. Okay. Now we move into the immunological disorder. What happened when our immune system is overreact to the immune response? Okay. Or maybe your body doesn't want to initiate the immune response upon the viral or microbial infection. So what happened? Okay, when your immunological response is not balanced. So the autoimmune disease will occur when your immuno response is unbalanced. Okay, so this is just an example. Okay, things that can go wrong with the immune system when your immune system is unbalanced. So what is it? So the immune response to antigen is potentially a two-edged sword. Do you know two-edged sword? Some sword has only one edge, but a two-edged sword is actually here, one and two, this side and both side. So what is two-edged swords in immune system? Two-edged means it either can protect your body, and also at the same time it will harm your body, the host itself. Okay, so double-edged swords, this side will somehow cause a protection response against the infectious agents, for example the microbes or the viral infection. Okay, on the other side, you will suffer from a disease or damage to your body itself, because in order to remove or kill the bacteria or infectious agent, our normal cells need to sacrifice themselves. So it somehow cause harm to our body. Okay, some disorders is immunodeficiency disorders. Immune response is very low, which is in AIDS, and also sometimes hyperinflammation in infectious disease. For example, leptospirosis, SARS-CoV-2, MERS-CoV infection, the COVID-19 disease. That is hyperinflammation. And hypersensitivity or allergy. The body immune system reacts against harmless foreign substance, resulting in damage to the body's own tissue. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but usually it happens because when we fight some infections, sometimes we doesn't feel very well, right? That means our body is not hurting ourselves, but our normal cell is sacrificing themselves to protect our body. Somehow we will feel like very fatigued, very tired, or some people will respond to some fever, you know. An autoimmune disease, when the immune system attacks the body, it is meant to protect. Okay, lost its ability to distinguish between self and non-self pathogens. And also the last one, chronic inflammation, usually occur in cancer where cells divided too much, and heart disease or rheumatoid arthritis and type 2 diabetes. So this example where your immune system can go wrong. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So this is example of autoimmune disease. So in healthy cells, helper T cells usually attack the virus. So this is normally happens in our healthy cells. But in autoimmune disease, the cells attack the myelin, the part of your neurons. So they are attacking our own body system, which is not the pathogen. Okay. And common autoimmune disease is multiple MS, the multiple sclerosis, allergy, type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, asthma, what else? More popular? Autoimmune hepatitis. Okay, this is some example. When your immune system go wrong, so autoimmune disease will happens. Okay, so now what are the applications of immunology? When you study about immunology, so you can relate or apply it with something else, right? Okay. So for vaccination and immunization, so agents that help the body to recognize and defend itself against infections from harmful pathogens. I think everyone is clear about this. We have like COVID-19 pandemic and we have the vaccine for the COVID, for example. It helps us to not to prevent from getting infection 100%, but it helps our body. If we get infected, it helps our body to recognize and defend ourselves against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And to learn about the serology, to apply it in serology, the diagnostic method in detecting various disease conditions using body fluids. And also we can apply the immunology in blood transfusion or organ transplant, which involve transferring cells, tissue or organs from donor to a recipient. And also for immunotherapy, the cancer treatment, because a person with cancer usually have immunosuppressed. So immunotherapy is needed to help fight or kill the cancer. And also many more. If you can find it in somewhere, you can do your own research and you can add to the application of immunology. Okay, so basically this is the last slides for today. And here is the required reading for this lecture, and I will post it, some additional info in the course content in your future. You may find the handouts there, okay, and some reference that I use for today's lecture. So basically this is the last slide, and I open to any questions if you want to ask regarding the course content or the lecture contents for today.